What a day out here in markets. We got tariffs and not tariffs, and you can see big gaps down, big touches of the level 591, and then we get rockets higher right to the next level here, 599. And then after hours, we get news that the Canada tariffs are not going to go into effect, and we got a big pop after hours. Got the gap fill in the after hours session. Definitely interesting. Let's take a look at the charts and see if we can find some direction. Do me a quick favor and like and subscribe and watch the video till the end to help out the channel, and let's get started. So like I said, we got the pause on Mexico tariffs as well as Canada tariffs now. So 25% tariffs, at least for 30 days. We'll see how that goes. Prime Minister Trudeau came out and said it. I'm actually surprised he's still the Prime Minister. I thought he was resigning, but he's still there apparently. And now you got tariffs being paused. Like I mentioned, it was going to be 25%, but not anymore. We also still have 10% for China goods, as well as 10% for Canadian energy. But it seems like that is probably going to get paused as well. Canada did try to retaliate briefly there, saying $155 billion in U.S. good tariffs in retaliation for the Trump tariffs, but apparently Canada made a new commitment to appoint a fentanyl czar, which is interesting considering that they didn't do this before. They didn't seem to care before, but they needed a little bit of pressure to lock up their borders and not allow fentanyl to continue to pour into the United States. Interesting with that, but they said $1.3 billion to reinforce their border, so we'll see how that goes. At least for now, it seems like catastrophe averted. And then moving over to fear and greed, down to a 44 from a 45. Still extreme fear here on momentum and strength, as well as breadth, sitting in just regular fear there, but really fear across the board. Volatility spiking again here today. It'll be interesting to see what that looks like later. And then safe haven, fear, and then junk bonds, big spike down into extreme greed. Pretty much people are concerned, and the bond market seems like the best place to be in my opinion. For earnings, we did get Palantir. They absolutely crushed it. Tyson Foods also beating. Clorox also beating. Very, very good. Pretty much across the board, except for Everest. I wonder if this is a bit of a typo. It says negative 13, almost $14 versus $12.78 expected. Probably something weird going on there, but don't forget you got Google tomorrow, PepsiCo, AMD, definitely interesting. Pfizer, Chipotle Mexican Grill has been a big mover here recently. And then going into the Wednesday, you have Walt Disney, Qualcomm, ARM, Uber, MicroStrategy, as well as Yum Brands. I like to watch them. I do own a little bit of Yum Brands. And then quick look at Max Payne. This has shifted significantly more bullish here today. You can see bullish across the board here for now 10 days out. So pretty bullish, about 1% higher at least. Moving over to the charts, looking at the S&Ps, you can see we gapped down to the level, 591, touched the level and bounced pretty substantially from there. It was still down a little bit, about 0.2% there, but after hours, you can see we're bouncing another $2, almost $3 there, almost getting the gap fill. So bit of a nothing burger on the tariff move, and now it looks like we're rallying into that after hours. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish, so technicals still sideways choppy to bearish for me, and it'll be interesting to see what the reaction is in tomorrow's session off of this move. You can see it here on the hourly. Big gap down, touch the level, rally up, selling just a smidgen after the bump after hours. So level 599.64. If it breaks through there, we could be looking for a lower low now with a high, lower high here potentially, and then a lower low cut. The tariffs are paused, but that does not mean the market is in good shape. It just means it could be a little bit more orderly down move. Either way, at this point, it's been really, really choppy. High, lower high. You could argue double bottom in here, but either way, looks like sideways consolidation at best. And then looking at the Tasty charts here, you can see super oversold. We were already oversold, and then we gapped down further, touched the low back here, and then pulled back to the middle of the range. Technically slightly bullish conditions with that after hours move, closed above it, hit this zone of resistance in here. Either way, still looks like a high, lower high potentially. If it cuts through here, the big break level is going to be that 599.50 area like we've been talking about. If it pushes through there, you could see a push back down to these lows potentially. That might be a little aggressive, but it's within range of that lowest band, which means it's definitely in play at least over the next day, maybe 2 days. If we do get the higher low setup, that could be interesting, maybe around 595, higher low setup in here, low, higher low, and then we could get a push to the upper bands. Your upper range there would be 606.20, somewhere in there for the hourly chart. Moving over to the NASDAQ, similar thesis here. You can see down 0.8 or $4, gap down from around 522 down to 518. And then again, after hours, getting a little bit of a pop. Some of that is off of the the Palantir earnings, which was very strong, like I mentioned. 518.11 was the closing price. 519.48 was the resistance, and we pushed through that in the after hours. Again, though, you have a high, lower high here with a low, higher low here. Looks like sideways consolidation with no clear direction, in my opinion. And you can see it here on the hourly chart. Big gap down, hit the level here, 509.74. That was the key level that we were watching after this. 519 and 514 both broke on that pre-market move, and then we got above it here. Nice little trade right up to the next level there at 519. And then we did pull back and close below 519, and then the rally through in the after hours, hit these key levels here, got the gap fill in the after hours. Now it'll be interesting to see, does this pull back to the 21 EMA right around 518.50, hold the higher low in here and then rally through? Or does it cut through there and look for a retest of that 509 area? That's going to be interesting. Based on this, high, lower high potentially. You got the 200 in there as well. So sideways choppy and at a key resistance area for me. And then moving over to the Tasty charts here on the Qs, you can see still slightly bullish conditions. Push through that middle zone, so it's a little bit more bullish relative to the SPY charts. Holding that zone in here, 521. Upper band there, 526.70. So you have about another 1% or so potential in there. Then we'll see if we hit resistance. Then you might see a little bit of a pullback. Either way, if you get the higher low setup, I would like to see that around 514, 515 in here. Hold the higher low in there. Then get the continuation to 527. That would be a great little trade potentially. But for now, this is kind of an outlier. It's tough, right? So you got the gap down. You kind of grind price action here. The overall short-term trend is still bearish, but these very short time frames, anything below that 1 hour is going to be bullish here. And then stepping back up to that daily chart, it's still bearish conditions here. You can see ATR trailing stop to the upside there, 536.68 overall bearish with this high, lower high, lower high. If it cuts back down, 89 EMA is there at 507.58. We didn't quite touch it. We touched it here and bounced. If we sell off again from this zone here, that's where I would expect to end up. Moving over to the Russell and the Dow, the Russell pushed up to the level 226 in the after hours, touched the level, selling off a little bit from there. Pretty much the same as everything else. This is the hourly here. You can see the sell, gap up, retrace, fill the gap, sell off. Didn't quite fill the gap on a closing basis here, but it's trying to, it's doing its best. We'll see how that plays out. And then looking at that daily chart, same thesis as everything else. Gap down to the level, 221.50. Touched that level, rallied up, tried to fill, couldn't quite do it. Momentum still bearish, RSI still bearish. Same thesis here. Even with the rallies up and even with the buy-ups on volume, you have to look at these technical pictures, which still look a little bit bearish to me. I was expecting a bounce. I just didn't think we would go so much lower first. We got the bounce, and now I'm expecting a little bit more sells. Moving over to Apple and Microsoft, these did not recover nearly as well as everything else. These looked terrible on the day, down 3.39 and 1% respectively. Apple headed back towards 224.36, below the level 230.28, momentum stepping down, RSI stepping down. I would say this is going at least to the 200 there at 220, probably a little bit lower, 217.62 potentially. And then you got Microsoft. Couldn't quite get below these wicks here. You can see this consolidation, but we're below the level, 413.36. At this point, I do think it's going to go. We're still holding just barely. But realistically, I think this is going to go momentum bearish, RSI bearish. Everything looks bad here. We've been in this trading range for a very, very long time. You can see we were holding slightly higher lows for a while. Now you got a low, slightly lower low here with highs, lower highs here. Microsoft just looks bad, and I think it's really set to go lower. Moving over to Tesla and NVDA. Tesla did bad as well, down 5%. It was down a lot worse on the day, early down in the 375 area, bounced up here to 383. It's up a little bit after hours with those tariffs coming off, but still not a great day at all. Momentum bearish, RSI still bad. This looks a lot weaker here now. We're not quite to a lower low, but I would guess at this point that it's going to go. And then NVIDIA, big drop there as well, 2.84. Bounced a little bit. We're below the trend line. Momentum bearish, RSI bearish. I still think this is headed towards 106.64, and you can actually trade off of this trend line here. For tomorrow, that's going to be around 118.25. As long as you stay below that, then you're looking for a bigger sell to this zone here. Moving over to Amazon and Alphabet. Amazon was down just a couple of pennies, still holding the zone here as we head into their earnings. And then you can see Alphabet here, gap down and fell a little bit, 1.4% back below the trend. We're right at it after hours. It's probably going to hold in this level until the earnings, my guess. But we'll see if they have good earnings. Looking for a push to here, 224 potentially. If they don't, headed back down to here, 193. Maybe the 55 EMA down there at 188. My guess is that they'll do okay, but it's been a bit of a run into earnings here recently. It's been improving on the technical structure, so that might be a little bit concerning, but overall still looks good on this short time frames. Moving over to staples and discretionaries, you got staples up 0.39, still holding the level, gapped way lower, almost hit the 21. That's what I was hoping for in here, 77.88. Didn't quite do it, caught a bounce. This looks even more bullish now here for me. And then looking at discretionaries, gap down 1.3% on the day, was lower on the day, and then bounced a little bit. After hours, it's in a little better shape, but momentum and RSI both say bearish for me. Moving over to breadth. Breadth saw a big gap down. That is not great at all. Momentum continues to fade. RSI continues to fade on both of these here. With the moves down, they held up okay. We did get the bounce, just like we saw in the markets, but this looks like a structural break now. So you have consolidation, gap down, fall, hit these levels here. I would expect this to continue. So might see a little bit of more of a spike up, touch some of those key levels that we talked about in charts, but breadth starting to fatigue now after this rally from around the 15 area up back into the 50s. Moving over to the dollar went way higher on the session, and then we got the news that the tariffs were coming off, and then it went way lower during the session. You can see it's rallying here a little bit to the start of that Tuesday session. We'll see if that continues at all, but look at this huge wick rejection, big wick up, touch the key levels, touch these previous highs, at least the bodies of the candle, and then you can see close below the 21 EMA. If this was a liquidity grab, they did an amazing job. And then if it rejects from here, that is going to be a great trap, in my opinion. We'll see if it continues here. They might want to throw one more wick up, touch these levels here, throw one up to the 110 area, touch the trends in here maybe. Big wicks, liquidity grab, and then you see the bigger sell. Maybe this is a high, lower high forming. It's hard to say for now, especially with this tariff thing going back and forth. But for me, still looks like a little bit of sideways consolidation with a big wick rejection. Moving over to the VIX. The VIX ended up going higher like we thought that it might. We got the low, higher low here, and now you got a slightly higher high here. Pulled back to the 1850 range. It held that level on a closing basis. Momentum bullish, RSI bullish. I would expect that this is going to go a little bit higher here. Let's see if we can find any structure. Maybe something like that would give you a target in here around the 2250 area. That's kind of what we were looking at already with these kind of wick highs in there, but it's kind of looks structural. You could argue this is going a little higher, and I think that it will actually. Moving over to my accounts, I lost about $500 across the two accounts, so a little bit less than 0.5%, which is pretty much in line with markets. The bummer here is that we're seeing that bounce after hours. Like I said, I'm a little bit bearish, so I took everything off. I think we're going to get a better opportunity or potentially a short move to the downside to give a potential short play. But for now, I'm out of the markets, being patient here. Just a little bit too much volatility. We had the DeepSeek move down. That was a bit of a nothing, and then we rallied back up. And now we got tariffs, and that seems to be rallying back up. Seems like there's a little bit of manipulation in markets. And like I mentioned, I think this is consolidation to potentially slightly bearish markets, in my opinion. Let me know down in the comment section what you think of the charts. Let me know where you think they are going over the next day or two. If there's anything you want me to look at, let me know about that as well. Otherwise, like and subscribe if you got any value out of this video. Make sure you hit the bell so you don't miss out on any future episodes. Of course, none of this is financial advice. This is all for entertainment purposes. Good luck in your trading and have a great day.